in Kaito Arii's profile here, we're gonna list some of his accomplishments. 2023 World Cup top 4, representing Japan national teams in the World Cup of VGC tournament the past year. Also making top 16 of Worlds in the 2023 season as well. He was the Japan national champion in that same year, 2023, and also got a second place in the Global Challenge 3 in so a lot of really good accomplishments. Has been like playing most like recent years, but has obviously shown a lot of consistency in the most recent years he has been playing. And we have the team sheet here. Is a balanced team, as we were saying. Rillaboom, Annihilate, Baxcalibur is probably the main thing that catches my eyes here, because it's not a Dragonite. In a Dragonite meta, seeing a Baxcalibur is always refreshing, because Baxcalibur can do what Dragonite does, like mainly the skill shot spam, but also has a kind of like a different perspective, because it doesn't have to always spam skill shot. You might only need one skill shot to get that speed boost, and then you can start spamming Icicle Spear, which by the way cannot miss and hits also the same as skill shot. So iShare as well. We also see a solo Dozo, bulkiest Pokemon in this format, having that massive HP, massive defense, and access to move like disruptive moves like John and the leftovers, making it even tankier. Wave Crash, John, Fisher, Protect. By the way, the Annihilate that I was mentioning is Sash as the one we saw in the previous round. I believe we have seen Annihilate in all 2 rounds up to this point. So this is the third Annihilate. This one is used with safety goggles and Terra Water, Rage Fist, Coaching, Final Gambit. We have a support Volcarona. We were talking a little bit about it, you know, behind the scenes. And it's a support Volcarona without Rage Powder. It has Struggle Bug, Heat Wave, Will-O-Wisp, Tailwind with Cover Cloak, Terra Water. And finally, another King Gambit, but this one is not a... This one is Swords Dance, Black Glasses. And it doesn't have an offensive Terra. It has a defensive Terra Water option as well to maybe get, you know, some resistances into fire moves. So yeah, another balance, really strong.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's almost really mirrored what we were just talking about beforehand on how balanced teams are really put together in order to slowly whittle away and kind of reach their key point. You know, the Volcarona having not only the flame body to also try and burn physical threats, but also having the Will-O-Wisp, the manual burn. It's so important. I mean, looking at Kaito's team, just as an example, it's basically all physical Pokemon, so having such an important move like Will-O-Wisp on a supporting Volcarona really goes to show the level of threat that physical Pokemon do have in this current meta right now. So I've got to say, I'm a real fan of that support Volcarona. It's a nice change, it's fresh, and it seems to work quite nicely with the rest of the team. But certainly was mentioned, yeah, the lack of Rage Powder is a curious decision. Does Kaito believe that their Pokemon are kind of like bulky enough, or they've got the knowledge to be able to pivot enough that maybe Rage Powder isn't necessary? We can go focus on moves like Struggle Bug, which aim for stat drops over redirection of moves. It's a really interesting thought process behind the team building for potentially Team Japan as a whole, or just Kaito individually. So we'll move on now to look at the French players team, which is Alban Badin. Apologies if I mispronounced that. So we're seeing a player who has a little bit more experience in terms of years, but that's not to doubt any experience on either player's sides. We have the Santiago Regional Top 16, 2020's Paris Special Top 8, Lille's Special Top 16, and the Stuttgart Regional Top 16 as well. So a good wealth of experience in both years and top performances. And the team itself, again, following a similar kind of pattern. We've got a Rillaboom with an Assault Vest, so we're looking to be able to tank some hits similar to Kaito's team. The Magmar, which vitally does have the Follow Me move, so we're able to redirect away some really powerful single target moves, and the Vital Spirit ability ensuring that we're not taking any naps during this game. The Basky Legion, a favourite Pokemon which has been rising with popularity recently. The adaptability ability increasing the power of some of its moves and having a choice scarf, so we're not having to rely on weather to be able to outspeed our opponents. Everybody's favourite, or least favourite Pokemon, Sneasler here, going for the Terra Stella to really increase the output of damage that it's going to be dealing with that Dialclaw and close combat, but notably only once per move per game. The Snow Warning Ninetales, able to threaten a lot of damage, being very fast. And then the King Gambit on Black Glasses with Swords Dance again, so very offensive King Gambit, mirrored between both of these players that we're about to see playing. Paul, what are your thoughts on this team?
Yeah, we see a King Gambit, Swords Dance, Black Glasses mirror two teams. We have the Terra Water on one and the Terra Fire on Alban's side. Just opting for a more defensive Terra. Obviously, Water is a little bit more useful defensively because you don't share any weaknesses with your regular Steel typing. Fire does share the ground weakness, but because there are not a lot of ground Pokemon in this format, like maybe opting for that. And obviously, the benefit of having the fire Terra on King Gambit is that you have also that immunity to Will-O-Wisp in case that happens, right? So Relevant, King Gambit are two Pokemon that are shared on both players' teams, but we see a Scarf Basculegion with adaptability. Obviously, Basculegion is typically seen also on rain teams, the Swift Swim ability, but this one opting for the Scarf set with adaptability, being like a really fast speedball that can obviously people around with Flip Turn and just save a lot of damage for an end game if you need it, with Wave Crash adaptability. Crash doing so much damage, and it has the Terra fighting Terra Blast with the option to maybe hit the opposing King Gambit. So that's an interesting thing you have there. For those of you that don't know, when you Terrasalize, you your adapt on your previous stabs, so it's only going to be a situational Terra when you really need to click that Terra Blast against something like King Gambit, which we do obviously know is on the opposing team as well. And the Ninetales being life for having something more offensive on a balanced team, so you don't have, let's say, to rely on setting up or just on, let's say, like raw power. You also have the option to have that core on offensive Ninetales that can do like for boosted Blizzards and Freeze Dry, but also has Anchor that might be the main way that Alban has to deal with the Dondozo. You have all that can hit water types for super effective, and it's really good into Excalibur because you are immune to Scale, resist also the Icicle Spear. So Ninetales probably is going to make an appearance here. I think that's a really nice thing to have against a team like Kaito's team. So yeah, I think we have game one ready, and I'm excited to see how these two players are going to begin their match, as we do see a Basculegion lead and Sneasler from Alban's side, and we have that Excalibur that we were talking about being led turn one next to the Annihilate.
Yes, so we've got a very interesting set of leads here. Basculegion immediately kind of controlling the speed here, having that Choice Scarf. It's naturally the fastest thing on the board, and it does present an immediate threat. Though most, not the most damage right now in the game, but that last respect is still going to hit incredibly hard into this Annihilate. So Alban doing a really good thing of presenting a lot of immediate fast pressure. Also somewhat knowing that potentially the Tailwind is a manual set by Volcarona on Kaito's team. So I do quite like this lead here. We've got a lot of options available from Alban here. So Kaito's really going to have to think about where their priorities lie in terms of what needs to be removing. So we are going to see the Terra immediately clicked on turn one from Kaito's side. We are seeing the Excalibur go into Terra Ghost here. So ensuring that we're not going to take any devastating blows from no wave crashes, not going to be hitting too scarily into it. Sneasler going for a cheeky protect there, scouting up what their opponent's going to be doing. Interesting start.
Yeah, the Terra Goes on Excalibur is a nice way to play around this Sneasler, because this Sneasler does not have Throat Chop. It's only a Dire Claw, Close Combat, Fake Out, Protect variant. So Excalibur is safe against Sneasler, but of course you have the option to pivot into that, click the Protect. So now you are able to see and scout what that Excalibur is going to do. And I believe we are going to a coaching on the Annihilate. Excalibur's attack and defense, but the Scale Shot is not going to be able to get any damage here because Ninetales is immune to Scale Shot, and we saw his Sneasler just protecting it. So like, I believe the Scale Shot was originally targeted at the Basculegion, so Ninetales was a really great switch in there. And as I was saying before, Ninetales is really good into Excalibur. Ice moves are immune to also Dragon moves, and now you have the option to go for a neutral Blizzard because the Excalibur is obviously neutral to Blizzard before Terra and after Terra because it's a Dragon type as well as being. So really nice turn one by Alban. You have the offensive moves, and this Annihilate is not looking great either because yeah, Sneasler doesn't hit it that, but it still has to take a really powerful Blizzard potentially, as we do see the Protect and the Excalibur trying to get something with the Annihilate. The Sneasler, I believe, went for a Dire Claw into that. I wouldn't be surprised if it's just a Blizzard from the Ninetales, because that would be a really good move that hits both. And yeah, that is exactly what we're going to see. A Blizzard, it could have also been an Anchor into the Annihilate. Anchor coaches cannot do much. And the Rage Fist is going to be targeted into this Sneasler for quite a lot of damage. So that's not a really bad turn for Kaito, because you at least put this Sneasler in range of something else.
I agree entirely, but there's an important note to do with Alban's team. So the Sneasler is an unburdened Sneasler, but with a focus sash. So the fact that the Rage Fist didn't quite bring the Sneasler down to sash means that it doesn't get that dynamic speed boost, doubling its speed due to not having a held item anymore. So it's, whether calculated or not, very, very positive for Kaito that they haven't given Sneasler such an advantage in terms of speed. So if Baxcalibur is able to get off some scale shots whilst Sneasler still stays on the board, it may well be that Sneasler isn't able to maintain being the fastest Pokemon on the board. So we see Protect coming out from the Sneasler, ensuring that we're able to stay safe, knowing that Ninetales is able to deal a large amount of damage into both of Kaito's Pokemon here, with the Snow Boost, with the Blizzard being able to hit both and potentially hitting a Freeze. So we're going to see a lot of damage coming out. Excuse me, the Life Orb really adding to the damage output here, but Kaito's read into it, going for the Rage Fist into this Ninetales, now with 2 stacks of Rage Fist hitting in, so a lot of damage has been dealt down to Alban's side, so really leveling the playing field for both players, every Pokemon having less than 25% health, so we're really going to be seeing where trainers' priorities lie in terms of what they want to knock out to ensure their own victory here. Paul, what do you think, what do you think is going to be the most optimal play for Kaito right now?
Yeah, I think right now you have the option to pressure Ice Shard into this Sneasler. I believe that's what we saw last turn, that Sneasler protected, so the Ice Shard was blocked there. But this Ninetales is Lifer, so if you Ice Shard, even though it's not KO most likely to the resistance in the Snow Boost, it's going to put in range of its own Life Orb. Oh, actually, it is able to pick up the KO. From that range, Baxcalibur shown how strong it can be, even through the resistances and even through these no boosts. That was still enough. And Dark Claw does not KO the Annihilate, but gets the sleep. Annihilate is not going to be able to move this turn. And even though Alban lost the 9th, was putting a lot of work in this early game, at least the Annihilate was not able to KO this due to the Dark Claw sleep that happened.
Gosh, and what a role that was. You know, Golden Goes coin flip. Sometimes you win, sometimes you lose. And the unfortunate situation was getting slept on the Annihilate there meant that the Sneasler will actually be staying out on the field for, you know, potentially a couple more turns even. I really liked the play of going for the Ice Shard into the Ninetales specifically, knowing that Ninetales can hit Blizzard, which can actually KO both of Kaito's Pokemon there. So really prioritizing removing the spread damage there, leaving Sneasler to take out one of 2 Pokemon potentially. And although it didn't take a KO, it's almost it's put Kaito into a position that you could argue in some cases is worse than losing the Annihilate, because now it's a Pokemon which is asleep on the board. Yes, it would have had 1 turn of sleep from being slept as Sneasler was faster. However, sleep being random when you wake up, it's almost hindering Kaito that Annihilate didn't go down in that moment. It's now with Basculegion coming out, the fastest Pokemon currently available with that Choice Scarf and adaptability boosted attacks. It's going to be a devastating turn for Kaito if they're not able to pivot around what Alban has effectively.
Yeah, as we did see the Basculegion attacking into Annihilate, even though Annihilate was already first turn asleep due to moving after his Sneasler Dark Claw. So I don't think if you're Alban, you want to risk the Annihilate getting the first turn awake. So you have to prioritize. And Sneasler is going to go for a Dark Claw. Of course, it cannot touch the Baxcalibur with close combat, so it has to be a Dark Claw. So I don't know if it's going to be enough to KO from 39 HP due to Baxcalibur being so good defensively on the physical side. And it's not enough to KO the Baxcalibur. Baxcalibur is going to be able to get that Icicle Spear on the Basculegion. Getting that Icicle Spear on a water type is a way to say, like, okay, I know that you have a real chance of going for a flip turn here. You want to keep your momentum probably. So if you do that flip turn, I'm going to go for that. I believe, no, sorry, excuse me. It is not spear. It is a scale shot because we saw the speed boost now on the Baxcalibur. So it's speed boost, is not an icicle spear. Baxcalibur is now faster than everything here because this Sneasler, unlike the previous one we saw in the previous round, is not the unburdened with grassy seed. It's just like a focus sash Sneasler. It is still unburdened, but as you pointed out earlier, it's not able to get the burden boost because the Rage Fist was not able to proc the focus sash. So King Gambit is revealed. We also saw like a sneak peek of what Kaito has in the back. It is that solo Doso that is waiting, so you have to eliminate this Rillaboom if you want to have a safe endgame where like Doso can just clean the game.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're in a real case of the Sucker Punch mind games right now. Notably that the Baxcalibur has gone Terra Ghost so that it can't be faked out, but Rillabooms be Rillaboom and they do have Grassy Glide. So the Grassy Glide is a priority move able to hit into the Baxcalibur before it would potentially be able to move. But Kaito's Pokemon both have priority moves of their own. So it's going to be interesting to see exactly what each of these trainers are going to be doing, as Sucker Punch likely won't KO Sneasler in case the faster Baxcalibur is able to Ice Shard into the Rillaboom. So it's going to be an interesting turn of speed dynamics to understand who's going where. So the Sneasler does actually choose to be switched out in favour of the Basculegion coming back into the board, knowing that the Kaito wants to be able to Sucker Punch out some Pokemon, so the Ice Shard does go into the Basculegion. Gosh, the Rillaboom does then Grassy Glide into the Baxcalibur, taking it down. The -1 on defense, maybe not the most impactful in this calculation based on its remaining HP, so we're leaving Kingambit on the board to hit a very, very powerful Kotal Cleave into the Rillaboom, also knocking it out. So both players taking a KO on this turn, and correct me if I'm wrong, Paul, I think both players are left down to their final 2 Pokemon each.
Yes, I believe that's the case. Really nice play there from Kaito's, because even though you could have Ice Shard the Rillaboom to get that guaranteed KO, because Baxcalibur's Ice Shard would go before Grassy Glide, he wanted to prioritize this Sneasler. I think his Sneasler from that range, given that it took some recovery from the grassy terrain, probably would have been able to survive his Ice Shard. I'm not sure about my calculation there, but at that point, obviously, Kingambit is threatened by his Sneasler, so you wanted to prioritize there, and then your Kingambit can just deal with the Rillaboom that was so low health with a Kaito Cleave. So yeah, really nice play, but Kaito there losing the Baxcalibur. But as we saw, there is a Dondozo now on the field. Dondozo being really, really bulky and being able to probably clean this endgame, because there's no super effective moves to hit it, and Dondozo is really good on the physical defense. So really nice, let's say, scenario here. But the Kingambit is pressured by a close combat, and I don't think you Sucker Punch in that situation. But Kingambit, I believe, cannot Terra. We're going to see a Terra on the Basculegion, going for that Terra Blast, probably Terra fighting, because you need to have that resistance to potential Sucker Punch that can happen on your Basculegion. So we're going to see a Protect actually on the Kingambit, and I wouldn't be surprised if this is just fake out into the Dondozo. Double Protect actually, so not wanting to take any damage this turn. Kaito just playing safe here.
Yes, and it's also interesting that Kaito has gone for the double protectors. It's an important note that that Basculegion is actually locked into whatever move that it uses this turn. Having the Choice Scarf now, it almost allows Kaito to forecast what they're going to be working into. So the only real predictions they need to make in terms of move usage is what Sneasler is going to be doing. Basculegion, Terra Fighting, likely locked into the Terra Blast for us to have an educated guess to ensure we're taking out this this Kingambit as quickly as possible. It's such a tense position for both players. I genuinely can't see who's going to be kind of taking the advantage either way, purely because of that move. Everybody's favourite or least favourite move, Diaclaw, Paul. We've already seen one roll of it, hitting a sleep into the Annihilate, which was really, really crucial in my opinion for Alban to be able to maintain the momentum that they're trying to build up slowly through this game. So I'd hate to, cause a case of Caster's Curse, say that 4 times fast, but Diaclaw is something that we cannot forget about.
Oh, Sucker Punch is able to KO that Sneasler from around 30%. So Kingambit has shown how strong it is with the Black Glasses also said. And this is a Terra Blast, most likely Gambit, because that is super effective, is going to easily pick up the one-hit KO with the adaptability boost. But at this point, I think Dozo can just easily clean the game. You can go for a Yawn here, which is, I believe, what we're seeing. You can go for a Yawn, just play slow, go for Protect, let the Basculegion fall asleep, get a Wave Crash next turn. Even if Basculegion gets a first turn awake, it's going to be really, really tough to get that KO on the Dondozo that is full health currently.
Oh, absolutely. And Dondozo does have the secret weapon, the ultimate tech, everybody's favourite move, Fissure. So whether or not it's going to be clicked or not, I understand this is a very, very important game, but you can't understate the usage of Fissure. Maybe more useful against bulkier opponents, but the Wave Crash comes out, dealing a firm 60 to 70% to that Basculegion. So it's just very, very easily stated that this poor Basculegion cannot take another one of those. And if I'm Oh, what's that? Is somebody calling? Yeah, I think it's nap time for Basque Legion at the moment, actually. And there it goes, the poor thing, having a sleep in the middle of the battlefield. Not the most recommended strat, but as Kaito felt earlier, sleep on a Pokemon when you really need it to be awake is just devastating. So we should be able to see Kaito finish up this first match here with a devastating wave crash into the Basque Legion, which the poor thing just wanted a little nap. So potentially next game we'll teach our Pokemon, don't fall asleep at the wheel.
Yeah, and at this point, obviously, we saw when the Dondozo was the last one, probably going to be really, really difficult to win from Alban's side, because you lost all your super effective into it. You lost your Ninetales, and that is game for Kaito with the Dondozo being able to clean this endgame, and that is on you have usually against heavily, let's say, physically oriented teams, because they don't have a lot of ways to deal with a full HP Dondozo that can on and go for a lot of offense immediately. So the idea of having the Dondozo in the end game was a really nice for Kaito. Losing the Ninetales so early was also probably something that maybe affected Alban's plan, because Ninetales with Life Orb and those cannot do much to it, because Ninetales obviously has that super effective freeze ride. So really good way to end the game for Kaito, saving the Dondozo, trying to prioritize getting rid of what could be a problem for Dozo, as we see Rich coming back. And one of the things I want to point out is that the fact that the Baxcalibur was able to get so much damage on the Rillaboom was huge. So maybe something that, let's say, Alban could have done is like just risk the Basque Legion win for a flip turn into it, because even though, as I was saying, like, you don't want to let having get powerful Rage Fist, so I do understand like trying to get rid of it immediately to not have to deal with that first turn a week later. But the Baxcalibur was able to just get that scale shot damage into the Rillaboom and doing a lot of damage, like KO it later with damage. So losing the Rillaboom was huge also, because that was your main way to potentially deal with that endgame Dozo we were talking about.
Absolutely, and I'd like to cast our trainers' minds back to one of the earlier turns, as clearly we experienced by the start of this little cut here. I'm a fan of Terra Ghost, as I just disappeared, but the fact that the Baxcalibur went for the Terra Ghost so early, do you feel as though that Kaito was really able to kind of capitalize on that usage, or do you find that it might well be better for going forward in the next game that they could preserve that Terra for kind of future usage to ensure they're able to take a cleaner end game, as that was quite a tense kind of end of the game. It was very back and forth, and it was hard to tell who was particularly going to be winning. So, what's your thoughts on the Terra usage in that game?
Yeah, I think the Terra makes sense, at first, because you're facing an Sneasler, it can just combat you. So the idea of Terrasalizing there was to avoid any damage from Sneasler, because you resist Dark Glow if you Terra and you're in combat. So it makes sense to me, even though, Kaito won, but there were a couple of things that could have gone differently, and maybe the outcome would have also different. So it's something he has to obviously analyze. Do I want to commit my Caliber? Do I even want to lead with Caliber again, knowing that my opponent is going to lead probably with that Sneasler as we go into game 2? And this time, as I was saying, there's no Baxcalibur. It's a King Gambit Volcarona lead from Kaito's side. Remember, this poor one. It does not have Quiver Dance. It does not have a lot of offensive moves. It's just Struggle Block, Heat Wave, Will-O-Wisp, and Tail Wave. And there's a Ninetales that is led here. Obviously, you have the pressure of the Basque Legion potentially terrestrializing for a Terra, fighting Terra Blast into the King Gambit. So you have to keep in mind that you need to respect that option. Usually early game battle flip turn, but at this point, since you are so far behind in the set, maybe a turn 1 Terra wouldn't be that crazy. You have to respect that option, as we see Kaito trying to maybe call that and going for a switch, or just going for an offensive move with King Gambit, and he's almost gonna time out. There's a Dondozo switch, and it was hover there, and Volcarona and Basque Legion also are going to switch out into a different partner in this turn 1. That's Sneasler coming in from Alban's side, and I believe Volcarona is going into the Dondozo we were talking about.
Yes, absolutely. So both players opting for very, very safe switches. Alban respecting the fact that there is a King Gambit in the lead, and there is a very, very high possibility that a Black Glasses King Gambit would be able to sucker punch the Basque Legion down and take a knockout very, very early. So going for the Kaito Arii instead into that slot, dealing a very, very good amount of damage into the Sneasler, taking 50%. And again, similar to last game, Sneasler is in a position whereby it's not able to capitalize on its unburden, as the Focus Ash has not actually been broken. So being brought to 50% HP is really, really good for Kaito. Again, I'm not sure whether this is calculated or whether this is just pure luck. However, I do not want to underestimate Kaito's level of understanding exactly what's going to be where, reading the sucker punches, so going for a switch into the slot, which is really, really vulnerable to it, is just incredible. The Ninetales being on the board is also a little bit of a pain for Kaito, however, as Kaito's King Gambit doesn't actually have a move that can particularly effectively hit this Ninetales, so I'm interested to see what the players are going to be doing now.
We see a King Gambit switch out there, and as I was saying, like that basket one that would have been a one-hit KO, but obviously Alban wanted to respect the potential will-o-wisp from Volcarona and a protect play, as we do see Dondoso going for a protect now. Protecting in front of a Ninetales that has Encore is risky, obviously, because you can just get Encore into protect next turn, as we do see the Ninetales going for Blizzard, I believe, or maybe that was a freeze dry attempt into the Dondoso that just protected. And I think Sneasler also tried to double into that Dondoso, predicting that King Gambit would probably try to play defensively, maybe go for a protect. So that was a great way to capitalize on that double targeting Dondoso by clicking protect and bringing Volcarona now into the King Gambit slot. But remember, this Volcarona does not have Rage Powder, so you cannot redirect any potential Encore from Ninetales here. But you can just let the Ninetales go for Encore if you want, or you can just switch, because at this point it's a mind game. Like, are you gonna let me? So maybe you switch out, so I'm not gonna Encore because I want to get some damage in return. That is a really, really tough spot to be here for the for Alban, as we see a close combat critical on the Doso. A lot of damage.
That is an absolutely devastating time to get a crit. Alban really understanding that last game Dondoso was such a problem and being able to remove it from the game so efficiently with help from the critical hit, yes, but the freeze drive follow-up was just absolutely perfect for ensuring that the Pokemon, which really, really ruined Alban's endgame, is removed ASAP. Important to note here now that the Volcarona able to do basically what it wants, knowing that Alban has to prioritize this Dondoso and not wanting to risk, you know, getting encored or anything. They've just gone for a Tailwind, knowing that they are now faster than this Ninetales, which can't efficiently make use of you know, Encore as much anymore. We're faster, we're hitting quicker. You know, moves suddenly like this Heat Wave that the Volcarona does have will be able to hit into both targets super effectively into the Ninetales, and potentially threatening a KO on the Sneasler, which is at -1 from hitting close combat into the Dondoso here. So very, very scary for Alban right now.
Yeah, we saw a freeze dry close combat double into Dondoso. I don't know if without close combat crit the freeze dry would have been able to KO Dondoso, maybe, but that combination was really good because you covered for a King Gambit Dondoso slot, and you cover for the Dondoso also staying because freeze dry would be super effective. You also cover for a Terra on Dondoso had Terra, so close combat would be super effective if that happened. So really nice double targeted in the previous turn from Alban. And now we saw the King Gambit, we saw Kaito like checking a little bit the stats, and we saw that this King Gambit is in fact able to outspeed 91 speed, I believe, is what we saw. So it's going to be able to outspeed a max speed Ninetales, as Heat Wave is the move of choice for Volcarona. Is not able to KO the Ninetales, but because the Ninetales is outsped by this King Gambit, as we were mentioning, even though it's going to resist Kaito Cleave from that low range, it's definitely going to be going down from this Kaito Cleave. So nice turn here by Kaito. Sneasler had to protect, because even though it's a support Volcarona, Heat Wave might not do usually a lot of damage. It had this special defense drop from the previous close combat, so it was probably going to go down if Heat Wave connected there.
Yeah, absolutely, and what a strange interaction that is. Usually, King Gambit is the last thing that you're going to see moving before a Ninetales unless it's hitting a sucker punch, so really, really making use of the speed control that potentially they weren't able to set up as efficiently last game, so Kaito really, really understanding what they want to be doing in this game to try and pin Alban down. They are on their last two Pokemon, correct me if I'm wrong here, but the Basque Legion with its Choice Scarf is still going to be a very, very big threat, as it is just ridiculously fast as a Pokemon itself. The poor Sneasler, on the other hand, almost left a little bit in limbo, as it's going to be faster than the King Gambit, but then slower than the Volcarona, potentially, based on how the trainers have trained their Pokemon. So it's going to be interesting to see what Alban has to do to ensure that they can kind of pull back into this game. As I'm not sure about you, Paul, but I do feel like Kaito has really, really taken the reins on this game and ran with it.
Yeah, Volcarona is being like really useful here, setting up the tailwind, pressuring this knee slayer. And even though Basco Legion is going to be able to hit it super effectively, you also have Sucker Punch play, because I think King Gambit, even with that really high speed that it has, is not able to outspeed a choice card Basco Legion. So this knee slayer is going to switch out probably Fear in that Sucker Punch at -1 defense. It's going to be able to get that KO, as we do see the last Pokemon reveal for Alban is going to be that really. So you have to go for a water move probably into this Volcarona. And there is a Sucker Punch, trying to predict that maybe the King Gambit wouldn't Sucker Punch into Alban's side, or maybe King Gambit was indeed faster than this Basco Legion, maybe because the Basco Legion is adamant and not Jolly. But I think, you know, at that point, you had to go for a damaging move. This Basco Legion actually Aqua Jet, so yeah, I'm going just to avoid the Sucker Punch. So maybe a Terastallization would have been able to save Basco Legion a little bit in that turn, but no, King Gambit just gets Sucker Punch, and it's a 3 versus 2, and both Pokemon from Alban's side are 50% health or below, so it's looking really tough for him to get that win.
Yeah, absolutely. So we do see that Rillaboom obviously being a fresh switch in here. It does have access to Fake Out, but the question is, do you want to risk potentially faking out a Volcarona, which does have such a devastating spread move, which could potentially take a KO onto both, as you'd be risking that ever so frustrating ability, Flame Body, which will then burn Rillaboom, halving its physical damage output, leaving Sneasler basically to carry the rest of the game for Alban. So it's going to be a game of what do we want to do right now? Do we want to go for some fake outs? Do we want to go for some grassy glides? We are seeing the Terastallization coming out from Alban onto the Rillaboom, going Terra Water, so we're going to be able to survive some of the potentially devastating heat waves, which based on the last turn would have KO'd Rillaboom if it was able to land. So very safe play here, ensuring that Rillaboom is going to be able to survive one turn, protecting on the Sneasler, ensuring that your main damage output, that's left on your board, is able to survive this turn further. So one attack goes into the Sneasler, which is hit. That's the Heat Wave, dealing negligible amounts of damage to the Rillaboom, but the Kotal Cleave should be able to finish it up. So reading into the fact that Alban has protect potential and just doubling the Rillaboom, knowing that it can't protect, wow, that must sting. That's really well read by Kaito.
That King Gambit put so much pressure in this match, even in front of his Sneasler. He didn't even have to Terastallize out of the 4 times weakness to fighting, at least not up to this point, and put a lot of work getting the KO on the Ninetales, getting the KO on the Basco Legion, gotten 3 KOs in this game, and now we finally are going to see the Gambit Terastallizing. At this point, there's no pressure of the Rillaboom anymore, so you can go for a safe Terra Water that is going to allow you to take that close combat from Sneasler potentially really well. There is a close combat doing around 50%, but at this point, it's going to be game over for Alban, because both King Gambit and Volcarona are going to get a attack off, and the Heat Wave, now single target, is enough after the special defense drop from the close combat, and that's a really commanding win. 2-0 for Kaito.